Imagine you're in a small plane hovering around the cliffs of the Grand Canyon, or you're hiking down the trail to the bottom to sleep there by the Colorado River. I wanted to experience both adventures at my Grand Canyon return visit. I knew that I could not have that plane ride with my son because Carol said, "We don't want to risk losing our only son." Now, we could risk losing her only husband, but not the son. Caleb was quite a camper, and he was all in when it came time for that hiking down the trail. We decided to invite Caleb's friend Aiden on my left so that he would avoid the extra cost of a rental car and a cottage and quite a room with a view. Aiden found out that the Bright Angel Trailhead this time of year in May was going to be 16 miles instead of the usual 9 due to closures. So we chose the Kaibab Trail that was only 7 miles down and more intense. Kaibab translates into no food or water, down or up, unless carry or share. This dude is a bit overdressed, you would think, but he had seen snow on the peaks coming in and didn't want to be too cold camping out. I became obsessed with that camera, taking shots and video and lagging behind. A bit hemmed in I was initially on that hike, but there were soon panoramas galore. Now, some of that hiking would seem almost level ground, but then it got steep and steeper still. We even took in a mule train, stepping aside to not be trampled. Now, those mules would leave tracks, but the tracks you needed to step over and around were more obvious. We made our way to rest stop number 1 and on to rest stop number 2 and stops along the way to take it all in. Some people would say, "This is grand." Others might just see it's a hole in the ground. Now, I didn't have a leg to stand on because by the time I hit the bottom, my thighs were so sore. They were quaking, tremoring with each downward step. And was I ever thankful that that tunnel led to a bridge over the Colorado River and it was flat. And I was thankful to be able to pull out my portable stool and just sit down. My son Caleb cooked for all of us hot Brunswick stew. Yum. What I didn't know is that Aiden and Caleb had gone to confer with a park ranger about my sore condition. There were 3 options. We could try and book another night to recuperate over 2 days instead of one. We could even have an evacuation, which meant $1,200 to have that mule train carry me up. Or we could escape, which meant that very next morning we would take off about dawn so we could beat the summer heat by noon. I opted to fill our water bottles, hoping that I could be recuperated by the morning. And I had a head start because the creek by our campsite was so peaceful, so restful, that we all got a good night's sleep early on. We were hearing in the background early on fellow campers packing up, wanting to get a head start to meet that deadline of noon and all the heat. And we decided at dawn that we would escape, that I could get out of there with just my 2 legs. And sure enough, an extra incentive, beyond having prayers answered for healing of my thighs, was that the room on the rim was sure to have comfortable bedding. And my two mentors, Aiden and Caleb, would be so disappointed if I could not make it. And finally, I would lose out on my plane ride and all the majesty, seeing such a minuscule river that evolutionists and park rangers declared created the Grand Canyon over millions of years, when I knew full well that Genesis told of a great flood that had caused this Grand Canyon. And it's worthy to note that that canyon at times is 18 miles wide, and that river now is barely 300 feet wide. On the trail, we found views even more breathtaking on the way up. And I found that by bonding was even more special with my son, enough to last a lifetime as we would recollect this life, once in a life hike. Also, I found that my calves actually were in very good shape. Going up was easier than coming down, and that work on the Stairmaster really paid off. And I left behind at a distance that mule train.